world of Fallout is full of factions fighting it out for control of the Wasteland. While some of them are driven by good intentions, others are much more sinister. How many factions are there, and what are each of their motives? Here's every single Fallout faction explained. Brotherhood of Steel. Let's kick off the list with Fallout's most popular faction. Most commonly recognized for their use of power armor, the Brotherhood of Steel is a faction that prioritizes pre-war technology over everything. The group's main purpose is to preserve advanced technology and control who gets to use it. After what happened with the nuclear bombs, they don't believe humanity can be trusted. So, they preserve the technology to stop another apocalypse from happening. Depending on who you ask, the Brotherhood of Steel is either a group of heroes or a band of elitist gatekeepers. The original founder was a captain in the US Army. Roger Maxon's original idea of preserving technology was so that the world could rebuild. But once he died, the isolationist mentality kicked in, and the remaining members moved away from his altruistic ideas. They're neither heroes nor villains, but they're definitely not as bad as the next faction. The Enclave. Before the Great War, a secret group of presidents, scientists, military members, and politicians was formed. It was named the Enclave, and the members acted as the puppet masters of the United States, quietly pulling strings. Once the bombs dropped, the Enclave claimed to be the continuation of the pre-war US government. So why does everyone hate them? Well, their main goal is to cleanse the wasteland of impurity, so the world can build again with a racially pure set of quote-unquote true humans. Their racist and genocidal views are against ghouls, super mutants, and anyone who has been heavily impacted by radiation. With that pretty much including everyone, it's easy to see how the Enclave is the main villain faction of the Fallout world. After the Brotherhood of Steel destroyed Raven Rock and the Adams Air Force Base, the faction scattered throughout the Wasteland. At this point, only a few members are left, but their looming threat will always be there. New California Republic. Starting as a small settlement in Shady Sands, the New California Republic grew into one of the biggest post-war nations in the Wasteland. Intending to unite people under democracy, this is one faction that most people are happy to get behind. At its peak, the NCR controlled parts of California, Nevada, Oregon, Arizona, and northern Mexico. But while the goal was straightforward, internal politics caused the NCR to weaken and eventually decline. They wanted to expand rapidly to gain more territory, causing wars with competing factions. In expanding too fast, they ultimately ran out of resources. And once the Vault-Tec executive Hank McClain ordered a nuclear bomb to drop on Shady Sands, the NCR's fate was sealed. Like the Enclave, the New California Republic is pretty much a shadow of what it used to be, with loyal members scattered everywhere. Caesar's Legion. Every faction needs a big rival, and the NCR's rival faction was founded by Edward Salo and Joshua Graham. Edward later became known as Caesar, and he built an empire known as Caesar's Legion. Even though his co-founder Joshua Graham was highly ranked, Caesar tried to execute him after a failed mission. It was seriously ruthless, but that's how Caesar ruled. Graham survived his execution and naturally left the Legion. To put things bluntly, Caesar's Legion is a slaver society in dictatorship. The ultimate goal is to conquer the New California Republic and merge its territories with the military power of the Legion, creating a much larger totalitarian empire. The entire faction is based on the views and ideas of the ancient Roman military, which is where Edward Salo gets his name from. Raiders. As we've seen so far, some groups survive in the Wasteland by building communities and uncovering powerful technology. Other groups take what they need by force. They attack travelers in small settlements and loot wherever they can. These groups are commonly known as the Raiders. They're one of the most dangerous threats in the Wasteland, as you'll basically find them wherever you go. The term Raider is quite broad, with anyone out in the Wasteland who survives by murdering and plundering. However, there are some groups of Raiders who are more organized than others. The Gunners are a ruthless military organization. They take a no-prisoner mindset and have been known to take out entire settlements. The Khans take inspiration from Mongol traditions. The original Raider tribe came from dwellers of Vault 15, the same group that eventually formed the New California Republic. While this Raider tribe was destroyed, the New Khans and Great Khans eventually took their place. The Jackals and Vipers were the other two big Raider tribes that descended from Vault 15. There are plenty more groups of Raiders to mention, but none of them are as built up or established as what we've covered. Super Mutants. Before the Great War, West Tech's MBC division created the Forced Evolutionary Virus. It can be modified easily, so it's been used as a weapon several times. One of the most significant times was when the Master used the FEV to create super mutants from ordinary humans. The goal was to transform all humans into a single race to eliminate inequality. Super mutants have increased strength, radiation immunity, and enhanced injury recovery. Some super mutants retained their intelligence, while others became violent brutes, losing their humanity entirely. The plan to convert everyone was ultimately stopped, but super mutants stuck around. That was the beginning, but it certainly hasn't ended. Another faction called the Institute also created more super mutants using an FEV sample. However, these were slightly more intelligent and formed unique tribes across the Commonwealth. Most super mutants are aggressive, but you'll occasionally find friendly ones like Strong
learn new word. Strong learn respect.
or Lily Bowen, who's just a sweet old grandma.
Little Jimmy? My, how you're grown up. So good of you to come visit your grandma.
The Institute. Operating deep beneath the Commonwealth, this organization works in the shadows. The Institute was built by survivors of the Commonwealth Institute of Technology and their descendants. This faction aims to advance human civilization through scientific discoveries. Out of all of their creations, the synths are the biggest. These are synthetic humans created to abduct and replace residents of the Commonwealth for espionage purposes. While the Gen 1 and 2 synths look robotic, the Gen 3 synths are indistinguishable from humans. And like most other factions, the Institute will kill anyone who gets in the way of their mission. With no one knowing who's a synth and who isn't, it's easy to understand why people fear the Institute. The idea of sacrificing free will to progress humanity is the biggest question regarding the Institute. And the synths they create don't always want to follow their plans, which brings us to the next faction, the Railroad. Another group that operates in the shadows, the primary goal of the Railroad is to fight for synth freedom. These guys see synths as sentient beings with the same rights as humans, so they dedicate themselves to freeing them from the Institute's control. They operate through safe houses and secret networks because the Institute would openly destroy their operations if they were public. The faction is constructed like a pyramid. You get informants and sympathizers at the bottom, then you get runners and safe house owners above them. At the top, you get field agents and HQ members who have access to all the information. Plenty of people in the Commonwealth believe that synths are simply robots, so the noble cause of the Railroad isn't too compelling. The Minutemen. Formed as a militia to protect Commonwealth settlers from raiders and other threats, the Minutemen's ultimate goal is to protect communities and create a safer place to live. At first, the faction was able to defend Diamond City from a big super mutant attack, solidifying their position as protectors of the Commonwealth. However, internal conflicts tore them apart. When one of the Minutemen leaders betrayed them to join the Gunners, things fell apart quickly when they failed to protect the town of Quincy from a Gunner invasion. The faction still runs under leadership of Preston Garvey, but it's a shadow of what it used to be. But while we all roll our eyes when Preston Garvey asks us to help another settlement,
I got word of a settlement that needs our help. We can use all the support we can get. I'll mark it on your map.
just remember that this is the only faction in Fallout with purely good intentions for everyone around them. Children of Adam. Most people find radiation to be a curse on humanity, but the Children of Adam worship it. This religious faction believes radiation to be a holy force capable of both creation and destruction. Several sects exist within the bigger religious group. Some are peaceful and aim to guide the Wasteland through their faith. Others are violent extremists, attacking people who don't believe their views. Those are also the ones obsessed with the nuclear destruction of all mankind, as if the Wasteland hasn't already had enough of that. The philosophy of each sect mostly just reflects whatever the leader of that sect decides. It's not exactly a solid belief system. That said, many members of the Children of Adam are immune to radiation. They believe it's their gift from the atom, but a plausible explanation is that they have lived among radiation their whole lives, lowering the amount of damage over time. The Boomers. When Vault 34 was created, the experiment was clear. Overstock the armory with weapons and ammo, but don't offer enough living space for all the residents. A group of these vault dwellers rebelled against the Overseer, leaving the vault with a huge weapons stockpile. This led to the formation of the Boomers. They settled at Nellis Air Force Base in the Mojave Wasteland, restoring its pre-war infrastructure and building a self-sufficient community. The trademark feature of the Boomers is their obsession with firepower. While they're not exactly aggressive, they're paranoid of everyone and like to keep to themselves. As long as you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. The biggest goal of this particular faction is to restore the B-29 bomber submerged in Lake Mead, to fly the open skies in armored safety, raining high-explosive ordnance upon ignorant savages. The Shi. The Boomers are definitely not the only isolationist group in the Wasteland. The Shi are a highly advanced and secretive faction based in San Francisco. Their origins trace back to a pre-war Chinese submarine crew stranded in the city after the Great War. Over generations, they built a thriving society that blends Chinese cultural traditions with cutting-edge technology. Like the Institute, their community centers around scientific progress, but they mostly just use it for self-sufficiency. They're one of the most technologically advanced factions, cracking the code to restore pre-war T-51 power armor to working condition. They're also pushing for space travel, which they're apparently very close to. They do their best to separate themselves from everything happening in the Wasteland, but occasionally hire outsiders to run security jobs. The Kings. A street gang based in Freeside near the New Vegas Strip, they've built their entire identity around the legacy of Elvis Presley. It started when the gang found an Elvis-themed school of impersonation. They adopted the tropes and started calling themselves the Kings. The group is mainly focused on helping people of Freeside. They control the territory and protect it from larger factions like the NCR or Mr. House. They have good intentions for people of Freeside, but they're not above using intimidation and violence to keep order. Apart from the Boomers, the Kings are definitely one of the most fun factions in all of Fallout. And that just about does it for every faction in Fallout. Which faction do you think has the best ideology? And which bit of lore do you want us to cover next?